In case you have yet to see our first video, psst, we're starting a channel to help you become successful at advancing your career no matter what stage you're at. But before we start inundating your feed with all sorts of content, we want to take some time to tell you what we're all about so that you will know if what we're all about is what you're all about. You follow? So come on inside and I'll tell you all about it. Hey, what's up everyone? My name is Larry and I will be your host for this video series, Careers and Companies, brought to you on the Upmarket channel. It is the tail end of a long and cold winter in Canada, but I am making the best of it. I got my cardigan on, got to shoot one video with the cardi before we move on to spring and summer and a change of wardrobe and hopefully more sunlight and warmer temperatures. I cannot wait. So what do we have on tap for today? So today, I want to help you guys get to know us, who we are, the type of videos we're going to be producing and in what style, and some of the core philosophies that will underpin the perspective that we're going to take on the topics that we'll be talking about with respect to careers and how to run companies. I don't like to surprise people in a negative way, and I don't like to waste people's time, and I've been lucky that, in a way, that I've been thinking about this channel now for a couple of years, and I've been planning it for quite a while, and I have a really good idea of the types of videos I want to produce and the content that I want to put out there. So I'm in the very unusual position for a content creator to be transparent about all of it right from day one. So that's why I'm making this video. So let's get going. Okay, wait, but first, there's one thing I do want to point out. You may or may not have noticed that the teaser video that I put out was months ago. And in that teaser video, I started going on about, I've got all this content ready. I have nearly 100 videos conceived. I've got scripts written, like everything's ready to go. These videos are going to get pumped out one right after the other. So here we go. And then that didn't happen. Why did that not happen? So the reason for that is, guess what? I have a superpower that maybe some of you share with me, but I definitely have it. I have a number of superpowers, but this is definitely the worst one out of them all. I am a jinx, which means as soon as I say something is going to happen, the opposite happens. This usually plays out in sports. If I'm watching a game and my team is like crushing the other team and I know a buddy of mine is cheering for the other team, I start chirping him. As soon as that happens, minutes later, my team forgets how to play and they get killed. This also happens at work. So I don't know if this happens to you at work. You're having a really good day or a really good week, you're just crushing it, you're taking care of business, you're solving problems, you're getting stuff done, you're super productive, and you catch yourself thinking, or maybe even saying out loud, oh my God, don't do that. But sometimes we do, and we go, wow, I'm unstoppable. I'm just killing it. I've done that at work. And as soon as that happens, the email comes in, or the phone rings, or somebody appears out of the mist into your office with a soul-crushing problem that just changes everything that you've been doing and sets you back probably weeks. Crisis is usually what happens. So I don't know if that happens to you guys. That definitely happens to me. I'm trying to learn from it. I'm trying to grow. I'm trying to understand. I have to stop saying these things out loud or even thinking these things too consciously because it usually backfires. So what happened with me, as soon as I went, okay, I've got all these videos ready to produce and I'm getting set to be able to do that, it happened. Yes, I lost my COVID virginity. Years after COVID happened, it finally hit me. Now, it really wasn't too bad. However, there's a couple of things with the way COVID can hit you. With me, two things happened. Number one, I ended up with a cough that just went on for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And I do teach. So I managed to kind of get through that with like masks and really trying hard to control my breathing and how I was talking. The other weird thing that happened to me was it attacked my electrical system. So if I like scratch my head or touch my head here or touch my face here, I would have all these electrical currents going through my body. Nothing terribly debilitating, but it was distracting, to say the least. I would have vibrations in my middle ear. So I could hear all these noises and weird, like sort of bzz, bzz, bzz kind of stuff. And it was just like driving me absolutely crazy. So that went on for quite a while and eventually, solved itself. And there was like a host of other little things, which at the end of the day amount to excuses. One good one is, I got to tell you this story. If any of you go to the gym, so there's one exercise that I do at the gym when I'm working on shoulders, and it's called like a rope pull. All right, so there's a rope attachment that goes onto a cable machine, and you grab both sides of the rope and you pull it toward your face and then separate. And if you do the technique properly, it works your rear delts. So my COVID is done. I'm getting back to the gym. I'm really trying to get myself in better shape, and also, recovered from this little spell of being out for a bit. And so I'm having this workout at the gym and I'm doing a rope pull and I'm saying to myself all of a sudden, I'm not just going to do the traditional, 3 sets of 10 and just kind of, whatever, 1, 2, 3. And I'm really going to challenge myself. I'm going to like take myself to the next level. I'm starting this channel about leveling up your careers. I'm going to level up my workouts. I'm like really working myself into a lather. So I do my one warm up set with a lightweight. And then I'm like, okay, enough of this. Like, I'm going for it, right? And so this is a minor exercise. It's not like doing squats or bench presses. So it's a really good place for me to kind of work on getting on that next level and challenging myself. So I grab the rope. I psych myself up. I'm going to do this. I'm going to like pull heavy weight. I'm going to pull really hard. And I'm going to do heavier weight than I've ever done before. Here we go. And I grab the rope and I pull. I forgot to do one thing. I forgot to set the pin to a heavier weight, which means the weight that I was pulling with all the force that I could muster was extremely light. And if you're following along, whether or not you go to the gym, the way this thing works is you pull the rope toward your face and then you separate to do the exercise. Well, I was able to pull the rope really quickly toward my face, faster than I was anticipating. So yes, I punched myself square in the face in the middle of the gym. In related news, I do make a really good friend, but if you want to be close to me, and I don't mean necessarily in a major relationship, but if you want to be a friend that hangs out with me a lot, it's usually advisable to stay one full body length away from me because sometimes I'm just a disaster waiting to happen. But I consider this all to be a part of the whole Jinx story, because I slugged myself in the face and I gave myself a fat lip. A little bit of blood, super excited that I did not knock out any teeth because that would have been like a couple $1,000s at the dentist. So at least that didn't happen. But I ended up with fat lip. I ended up with a little bit of blood. And so that really didn't look good on camera. I really should have taken some pictures of that, but I was just too mortified and super angry at myself for doing that. So I tried to like fix it so that I could start shooting videos. And so cut to me at the drugstore, talking to the woman at the drugstore about like, what is my appropriate lip color and like, what season is my skin and all this sort of stuff, to try and find something to cover up all that purple that was on my lip. It was about right here. And so I can really match my lip color with some awesome Maybelline products now. So you'd be quite impressed. I now have that skill. So brought that home. And I thought, okay, so I'm going to cover all this up and then I'm going to record. Well, that only really solves the color problem. It does not solve the fat lip problem. So instead of looking like somebody with a fat lip who punched himself in the face or got punched, I looked instead like I just came back from a third world country where they were experimenting with lip fillers and hadn't quite yet perfected the process. So all that to say, I did not look very good. And I just went, okay, to hell with it. I'm just going to press pause on this and I'm going to start up again. So my perspective right now is I'm ready to go. Things are kind of okay, kind of stable. I'm not promising that I'm going to be putting out 6 videos a week, but we're here and we're ready to go. All right, let's talk about real stuff about this channel, starting with the name. Now, Upmarket is not just the name of this video channel, it is also the name of an app that I have designed and I have built. It is not out yet, so I'm holding off on launch plans until I get this channel going. I really want to focus on the content here. But you will hear me talk about the Upmarket app from time to time in context relative to the topics that we're talking about and not just to sell you on the concept. So what is Upmarket about? In short, it is a networking app that gets away from all of this digital content creation that's going on right now and all these algorithms. It's really about meeting people in person and having conversations of value. So I got nothing against meeting somebody for coffee because that can turn into something and you can still do that through this app. However, the primary purpose is to help and teach and share and advise and support each other. And the hook is, while you are building connected and meaningful professional relationships through these important conversations of sharing information and helping and supporting each other, to the extent that the members of the community find your help and advice useful, you will accumulate points, and those points will convert into your ability to monetize. So you will earn money through networking. You will expand your professional, relationship pool, and also turn it into a side hustle, something that's not being done out there. So I will talk more about the app as we go in this channel, but now let's talk about me. Yeah, and this is the part where I become really socially awkward. So I have to set up all these different notes and information all around me so that I just focus on the right things, because I'm the type of guy who will be like, I don't really like talking about myself. And then I'll go on for like 45 minutes, mostly out of nervousness and awkwardness. Um, but sometimes just when I get on a roll, when I'm talking, it's really difficult to contain myself. So this is the perfect medium for me because I can edit and limit some of the rambling that can happen and keep things pretty tight and focused. So with that in mind, I will tell you some things about myself that will actually be relevant to the perspective that I'm going to be bringing in this channel. So right now, I am in Toronto, Canada. I am Canadian, but I've worked all over the place in Canada, the United States, the Caribbean, some international assignments. I've kind of been all over the place, and I've been doing a lot of different things. So I grew up in Northern Ontario, in a lower middle class. I talk about my family like we were poor, but I would say we were a little bit better than that. We were 6 people in a 850 square foot house in Northern Ontario, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. And yeah, that's how we grew up. And that affects my perspective a lot, in the sense that although I've had incredible leadership and executive roles in my career, I do have a lot of sensitivity to the little person, I guess, because that's how I grew up. I'm the only person in my extended family. You can just reach as far as you can reach. Cousins, aunts, uncles. I don't think anybody in my family at all has a college or university degree. There may be a few that do, but I can't think of them off the top of my head. And certainly I'm the only person who has a master's degree. How that comes into play is that I was able to learn a lot of things about business and accumulate a lot of career wisdom that I'm going to be sharing with you in this channel, but it didn't happen as quickly as I would have liked, because I just didn't grow up in an environment that was on the same path that I was on. So this is in part what my purpose has become, and that is to figure out how to take all of this incredible wisdom that we all have in our brains and get it into the minds of other people as quickly and as efficiently as we possibly can. So that's a lot to do with like why I'm on this planet right now. I will talk about some things in my history. So yes, like my first job was at McDonald's. There really weren't many places to work in Northern Ontario. Like even working retail, everything was closed at like 6 o'clock, like way back then when I was a kid. So McDonald's was one of the few places to work, but I became a manager, one of the youngest managers ever at McDonald's at the age of 15. So I have this whole thing about having juice and having a bit of grit and just really going for it. And I will tell stories about what that experience at McDonald's and achieving managerial status at 15 did do for me in my career. So there's a message there that's like kick ass everywhere you possibly can. So I'll be promoting, that kind of message. My career has taken me all over the place. Like I said, geographically, Canada, I've probably worked more internationally than I have in Canada, although I've been back in Canada for a while now. So it's probably pretty even. I've worked in all kinds of different sectors. I've worked in tech, I've worked in banking, government, entertainment, healthcare, like all kinds of cool sectors. I've worked in huge companies. I've worked in small companies. I've worked in startups. I've worked in union environments. I've worked in HR and marketing would be the 2 biggest components of my career, but I've also have experience in service operations, in finance and accounting, entrepreneurship, education. So many different things. The point of that being, I'm old. Okay. I've been a lot of places. I've seen a lot of things. I've been in a lot of really crazy situations, and I can use all of that to incorporate into the career wisdom that I have, and also the wisdom to be able to be effective when working in all different types of organizations. So my life purpose now, as I've kind of mentioned, is people development, which is why I'm working on this channel, which is why I'm very much involved in teaching. I absolutely love it. That's sort of like a side hustle career for me, but I do it a lot. So I teach post-secondary business courses in HR, in finance, in accounting, in marketing, and all kinds of different subjects. And I just love it. I love the variety. And that is a part of my grander mission. So what else can I tell you about myself? Well, my identified superpowers, aside from the one that I told you about earlier, that I'm a jinx, is two things that are pretty closely related. One of them is I'm very good both right brain and left brain, and that's probably because I'm a Gemini. So if you follow astrology in any ways, that will make sense to you. So I'm really good with numbers, and I'm also really good with concepts as well, and maybe aesthetic things. So really great for things like a marketing career, and certainly for teaching. The other superpower that I've been told that I have, and these are things that have been put on performance appraisals and things like that, is mastering complexity, which is when I'm on my game, I can take a lot of complexity in our environment, in our world, and I can simplify it for you, but in a way that really works. Not the simplification where you just take all this complexity and ignore most of it and just focus on one or two things, which is how a lot of people simplify. No, no, no. It's about considering all of it, and then finding the path forward. And so when my communication game is strong, I'm able to explain that pretty effectively to people in a way that is quite relatable. So as I go through this channel, I will talk a lot about my strengths. I will talk about the weaknesses that I'm working on. I'll be pretty transparent about myself. So depending on the day, you're going to think I'm either really arrogant, or you're going to think I need, psychological intervention or something, to boost my self-esteem, just because I'm pretty blunt about both my strengths and my weaknesses. And there's a little bit of peace and empowerment that comes with being in that place. And that's something that I will be helping you guys try to achieve as well. Just acknowledge things about yourself and just be like, it is what it is. We'll fix the things that we can fix, and the things that we can't fix, we're just going to accept and work with them or work around them. So that's me. Next, who is this channel for? Well, I want to say this channel is for everyone, but that's not quite the case. So it's going to be for people who are aligned with the philosophies of this channel, which I'm about to share. But to start with, from maybe a demographic perspective, post-secondary students would get a lot of this channel. Professionals in white-collar jobs, leaders, people in all career stages who really want to take their career to the next level. Even people who are like hourly wage workers, minimum wage workers, will get a lot of value out of this channel as well. So it's really about the mindset and the philosophies of this channel that are going to separate the people who really want to be a part of it from the people, who don't. I am also going to get into not just looking at everybody and saying, okay, how can you move your career forward? I'm going to talk a lot about companies, hence the title of this video series, Careers and Companies. We're going to look at things not just from our own perspective and what do we need to do in our careers, but we're going to look at organizations and why they are the way they are, why they are not really well run, or at least consistently well run. So I might be a little bit hard on organizations, but I will also be empathetic, because there are a lot of structural issues that I'll get into in some very early videos in this series about what are some things about the way organizations are designed and the way they have evolved that make things difficult for the people who run them as well as the people who work within them. So I'm going to heighten everybody's understanding of these things so that we have the right context and the right understanding of our environment to take the right steps as we move forward. There's a key theme in this channel, a lot of key themes. One of them is going to be balance. So we're going to balance perspectives. We're going to look at things from our own perspective and our own world. We're going to look at things from the organizational perspective and develop maybe a little bit of understanding about that so that we can do the most constructive and productive things. We know who this channel now is for demographically. Now let's talk about the mindsets that I'm hoping we all eventually share as we work our way through the content. And those will be built off of 8 core fundamental beliefs or principles that will inform the videos that we present on this channel. So don't panic. 8 sounds like a lot, but I'm going to go through them pretty quickly. There's one, though, we're going to have to pause and just marinate in a little bit. It's a little more philosophical. It's more about like, where is the world going and what does that mean for what I need to do today or tomorrow. Most of these will be pretty easy to understand, and won't take a lot of work to get accustomed to. There are a few that are going to require some reminders, but I will make sure I do that when the time comes later on in our video series. The first one is pretty easy, and I'm sure something you've all heard before, and that is the growth mindset. Yep, I'm here to learn and grow. Totally understandable. I get it. I'm on board. Well, there's one other component of the growth mindset that's important that we acknowledge and embrace. The growth mindset, as it's written about, is predicated on the notion that we are not perfect. We are all a hashtag work in progress. I do have value, but there's some skills or knowledge or motivation or ability that I am lacking. And it's important to not only reflect on that and learn about yourself and understand these things, but it's important to just acknowledge it and embrace it and be cool with it. I have an expression that I use in different places, sometimes in classes. I'm going to use it on this channel, and that is make friends with your crazy. We're all crazy. I'm not talking about mental health. When we talk about mental health, we'll have a very different tone. But I'm a Gemini. I'm crazy. I'm nuts. You have your own crazy components too, right? You have your own little quirks. You have your strengths. You have your weaknesses. You have all of those little unique qualities that make you one individual on a big blue marble of 8 billion people. So look at who you are, just see it, be okay with it, and move on. Or actually, in this channel, move forward and move up. And we're going to expand on this notion of looking at yourself and being okay with things into a broader concept of being less judgmental and more uncritical, if that's a word. So we're going to work on things like acceptance and understanding, and maybe sometimes just a little bit of compassion, a little bit more than judgment. I want us to be able to look at ourselves, look at other people, look at the world around us, and not have it trigger so much emotion and so much criticism and so much judgment. I have a bit of a joke in that once I'm done with you, you're going to have a PhD in noticing. You're just going to notice things and just see it and understand it and sort of leave it at that. And once you get good at that, you will be much more productive in what you do with yourself, what you do in any particular situation. So we don't want to get too wound up. We don't want to get too emotional. We don't want to get too defensive. We want to work on being less easily triggered, and we just want to notice things. Does anybody do mindfulness meditation? The way the Buddhists talk about meditation, and there's different types. The hardcore Buddhists that I follow. I'm not a Buddhist, but I do follow some Buddhist teachings. They don't necessarily talk about it all the time as mindfulness. It's just a style of meditation where you just kind of sit, you hang out. It's not about clearing your mind and all that sort of stuff. It's just about noticing. You notice stuff. So for me, I love to do sound meditation because I'm highly responsive to sounds, and I also love sounds. So I can just sit there and hang out, and just maybe I'm outside, you just listen to birds, you listen to traffic, and you just go, oh, that was a bird. Oh, that was traffic. And that's fairly easy to do when you're just noticing things. When you get really good at that, and then you are then in a situation where your nerves, your emotions, your judgment can be more easily triggered, it helps you exercise that muscle of just noticing things. So that's where things like meditation can really help you. It allows you to just notice things and not attach so much meaning, not attach so much emotion, not attach a whole story to what it is that you're just noticing. And if you get really, 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 really good at it, it helps you with things like stress and anxiety and whatever, where you will just notice that you're sweating a little bit, or you'll just notice that you're breathing a little more heavily, but you're just not going to attach any thoughts or emotions beyond noticing that that's happening. So noticing is really cool. That's a part of mindfulness, and it's about deprogramming ourselves against being so judgmental and critical, and having a big story that we tell ourselves that's all wrapped up in emotion about everything we see and experience. Okay, you guys, here are two of my favorites, curiosity and empathy. Let's start with curiosity. Curiosity is a game changer. It's one of those things that separates people who either just stay in place or who just go places in their career. I want you guys to be curious about yourself. I want you to be curious about other people. I want you to be curious about what's going on in the world and in your career of choice. Curiosity is an amazing starting point to ignite all kinds of incredible change when paired with a growth mindset. And curiosity also, quite simply, can make you wise. When you're curious, you understand more. And when you understand more, you are in much more control of yourself and you're in much more control of your environment. And also, you're able to handle whatever happens to you. So there's a Stoic saying out there that says something like, nothing happens to a wise person that is contrary to what they expected. Nothing happens to a wise person that is contrary to what they have expected. So, if you understand what's going on around you, very little will surprise you. And this has a real connection to not only, wisdom and insight and career trajectories, but it also has a connection to a lot of the stress and anxiety that we feel, because it comes from a place of being uncertain, not knowing what's going on, not knowing what's going to happen next. When you have a lot of curiosity, you become very wise. You can oftentimes predict what's going to happen next, and not very much is going to surprise you. The gift with purchase of all of that is kind of a Zen payoff and a state of peace that I wish for all of you. Empathy for some people is a dirty word. Don't be freaked out about it. It's not about hugging somebody when they misbehave and accepting, less than perfect behavior from other people. Although I will tell you a story at some point in this channel where I misbehaved, in some ways with reason, but the other person reacted by giving me a hug, and it was totally the right thing to do, and it changed the dynamic of our relationship for the better. But that's not the part that I'm trying to push on you. The part of empathy that really matters is a second component, and that is really working to get outside of our own heads and into the minds of other people as a path to being able to influence the outcomes that we want. I teach empathy as a part of, say, marketing courses. So if you're in business, you're an entrepreneur, you're a marketer, you're a salesperson, empathy is absolutely important, because that's how you get what you want out of people. That's how you can effectively market to customers who are very much unlike you. Requires that gene. And it sounds like it's easy to do, but I know from teaching this for years, it's very difficult for some people to do. It's just wiring that they don't have. Do you have any friends or family or other people in your life that you absolutely love? They're incredible people. You're really happy that they're in your life, but they just give shitty advice. Do you know anybody like that? Awesome people, terrible advice. Why? They look at the world from their own perspective, which is not wrong, but it's not as helpful as looking at the world from your perspective and trying to solve problems using the way you think. It is a total skill set. It is something that we're going to work on here. It's about having empathy, again, for leaders, for coworkers, other people. It's a really effective tool for influence. It's an effective tool for building a business. It's an effective tool for leading people. It's an effective tool for causing success in so many dimensions. Guys, here's one where I think we need to spend a little bit of time. So there is this term that's being bounced around a lot, and it's pretty hip. It's pretty what's happening now. It's very 21st century, and that is acting with intent or being intentional. And I'm completely on board. This channel is going to be about being intentional, but I think we need to have a little fireside chat here. So I'm going to get my little coffee cup out. I don't know what time it is where you are, so you can have your beverage of choice. Just like, pull up a chair, pour yourself a drink. I'm just going to get myself, a little bit hydrated and caffeinated here. And we're going to have a little chat. Uncle Larry is going to give you the perspective of his wisdom for having been on this planet for dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of years. So I can see where the world is going, where it's headed, and what this means for you in terms of being intentional. I want to sell you guys on the idea and the importance of being intentional, not just automatically assuming, oh, this is a really cool thing to do. Look at me, I'm really spiritual, I'm being intentional. This is now a necessity, to the point where if you're just the type of person that likes to go with the flow, which sounds very sexy, you could end up out to sea without a life raft. It's almost a dangerous mentality in some critical components of our life. So let's talk about one that's tangential to careers, but not directly related. We'll look at financial planning and financial management, right? This is one area where we absolutely need to be intentional. Why? And here's something that my generation and the generation before me, the boomers, really do not understand about the world today. And these are things we kind of know, but we haven't properly internalized. There used to be a template for life that doesn't exist now. And in the financial planning TV ads from different companies, they would talk about, in Canada at least, Freedom 55, this idea of retiring at 55 and moving on to just have a glorious retirement where you have piles of money and you can just like spend it until you check out from this world. That used to be really easy to get to, and it's definitely not now. Why was it easy to get to in the past? Well, let's look at all the components. You could graduate from, let's look like 30, 40, 50 years ago. You could graduate from a trade school, you could graduate with a college degree, and you would get a job. And we can talk about all kinds of reasons why there aren't quite as many jobs for college graduates now, but that's not important. The fact is, back then, you could. It was a lot easier. So by the age of 25, not much later, you could have enough money from your job saved to buy a house, which probably only cost, I don't know, 5 to 6 times what your annual salary was. Mortgage rates were high, but your actual mortgage would be pretty low, so the expenses weren't too crazy. You could work, you could pay your bills, and you could eat, and you could have all this money, left over to invest and do other things with. And if you were married, your partner probably didn't have to work. You could survive on one income, and the partner would be able to, raise the kids, care for the home, those types of things. The stock market was pretty reliable since World War II. I worked for Johnson & Johnson in the early 2000s, and the stat was from approximately the end of World War II up until the early 2000s, the stock price grew on average 18% per year in that time, on average. So what do I mean when I say that? What's the point? That means you did not need to be a genius when it comes to investing, because the rate of inflation was well below 18%, so you come out ahead. So you probably hear stories in the pre-digital age when you couldn't buy stocks online, that you'd have these old people that would buy like 10 shares of GM or IBM or Disney or Coca-Cola, and they would put them in a safe, and the stock would split like 100 times. And so these stocks that they probably spent $100 on are probably worth, several $100,000. They go, oh, look what I found. And they just give it as like a gift or a little present to one of their grandkids or something. It didn't really take a lot of insight. It didn't take a lot of, I don't want to say grit, because people definitely worked hard, but it didn't really take a lot of extra effort. There were blue chip stocks. You just sock the money away and you've got millions in retirement. On top of that, most people were getting a pension, with the company that they were working with. So all of that stuff comes together, and, by your mid to late 50s, your mortgage is paid, the kids are out of the house, you've got millions in investments, and then you've got pension, Social Security, everything coming your way. Just live it up. It's a great life. So people really didn't mind just putting their head down and grinding for 25 or 30 years and raising kids and all that sort of stuff, because there was all this glory and sunshine that comes at the other end of it. And so the template back then, there were some layoffs that started in the Reagan years, but the template was put your head down, don't screw up, follow the plan, nobody gets fired. Golden, ideal scenario. None of that exists now. So you need to be intentional. You need to financially plan. Rent and food is super expensive now. Homes cost, I don't know what. I'm in Toronto, so it's like stupid amounts of money, right? 15 times your salary. So you need a massive down payment that you're going to be in your 30s if you can ever accumulate one, right? If you can save faster than, the cost of real estate and how that's accelerating. There's no pension. And, in the era that we're in, especially south of the border, there's no guarantee there's going to be any supports for you as a senior, whether it's healthcare supports or Social Security supports. I think the United States is running out of, the Social Security fund is going to start being scrolled back. So there's going to be less and less there. I was talking about this with my mom about 7 or 8 years ago, because we're a blue collar family, and my mother was living off of government pension, and her second husband was a police officer and he died. So she had a widow's pension. So she had something. So she was able to, keep herself going and then some. But we both acknowledge the way the world is going, her generation and then maybe mine will be the last seniors that are not a part of the world's top 10% financially that will be able to live independently if retire at all. So I know a lot of Gen Z and the generations to come are pretty nervous. They already know that they may not be able to retire. So you've got to be intentional about what you're doing financially, because if you just do your best every day, you just pay your bills, you just, you know, tick the boxes and pay your rent every month or whatever, somehow this is all going to work out for you. But society is just not lined up that way. And so I don't want to be all like doom and gloom. This is going to be a pretty positive and inspirational channel and empowering channel to just give you guys opportunities to do more with your career. But we need to be intentional with our finances. We need to be intentional with our health. Back in the day, food was designed to keep your heart beating. Now it's designed to make your heart stop. I do a slow burn and shed a tear. 2 blocks away from me is a McDonald's, which is right by the entrance to a subway station here in Toronto. So I come out of the subway, I see the McDonald's right there, and what's worse, I see a dozen bicycles of Door Dashers ready to pick up McDonald's to deliver to someone's home. That's a double whammy if you follow, right? Great, I don't have to pause my game. Somebody can deliver this food that is full of saturated fat and carcinogens. Awesome, right? And I'm not saying this to be critical. This is not a critical channel. I'm just saying I'm observing. Yes, the world has become very convenient. Convenient foods, convenient delivery, but that doesn't all line up to making sure that we're going to be healthy. That doesn't line up to making sure that we're going to have money at retirement. So it's the same thing with our careers. Technology, specifically artificial intelligence, is going to eliminate a lot of jobs. It's also going to create a lot of jobs. It's really going to shift the employment landscape. So it's going to be incredibly important that you be intentional about creating value for yourself and making sure that you create value that you can provide to organizations. If you just get up and go to work every day, do your best, that's not necessarily going to get you to where you need to go. You can still be minimized out. So I'm going to help you, and I'm going to make it easier for you to do this, because I see all this stuff coming. To be intentional about your careers. Get your mind out of, there's this book called The Squiggly Career. I forget who the author is, but she uses a term that's very similar to one that I often use. And there's another book by Seth Godin that I'll also refer to as well as we go on in the channel. But it's about disengaging your autopilot. We do so many things in our life on autopilot. We just get into these routines, but we just have this default assumption that it's all going to work out. It's not necessarily going to be that way anymore. So we're going to be required to disengage your autopilot, become intentional about many things in your life. But it's my job and the job of other people, because society is not helping with this, to make it easy for you to do that and not be overwhelming. So please, as a part of our little coffee chat here, please have the mindset and don't be afraid. There's going to be supports that you have to disengage the autopilot. You have to be conscious about your decisions, and you have to be conscious about driving your career to its appropriate destination. Thank you for letting me have that little rant. I feel better now. It was just absolutely important that I sell you on the idea of being intentional. And what goes with being intentional is empowerment. So acting with intent will improve your sanity, it will increase your level of confidence, and will leave you feeling empowered. Power and empowerment is something we are all fighting for in our jobs, in our relationships, and in our lives. So this topic will come up a couple of times in the first 20 videos that I'll be producing. One of them will just be the nature of power and empowerment, why it's important, how do we get it, and a second one that's more philosophical, just like I was a minute ago, and that is a video that's called something like What is Going On With Us, meaning what's happening to us as a result of all these different forces and factors going on with society. So stay tuned for that one. That one's going to be a big one, that we set the stage for the world we live in and use that as a launch pad for how we want to move forward. I don't know if all creators feel this way, but my feeling is I don't want you to become too dependent on me. I don't want that kind of responsibility. In fact, I just want to guide you. I want to help you get organized. I want to help you make awesome decisions on your own, and to do it easily and to do it with confidence. I think back to, and I don't know if they still use this marketing campaign. If you know the dating app Hinge, which most of you probably do, years ago, it was before the pandemic, I was in New York, I think I was on the subway, and I saw one of their ads and I thought, this is just so cool. And as a marketer, I really appreciated it. Their messaging was about, our goal is for you to not need us, which is really cool when you think about it, right? Because if you're an app, you should think, well, our goal should be for you to use our app more and more and more and more. But our goal is actually for you to have success in using our app so that you don't need to come on this app anymore, which means you're probably in a relationship. And I thought that is so cool. And I think back to that when I think about the purpose of this channel. My goal is for you guys to not need me, or maybe just check in and watch an occasional video to top up your knowledge or get current on something. I want to be able to sort of lead the horse to water, get your brain in the right mindset, give you some powerful strategic thinking, give you some critical action steps, but leave some pieces for you guys to make those final decisions yourself. Now, if it's your goal to be dependent on someone, if it is your goal through being intentional to surrender your power to other people, have at it. And I don't mean that in a passive aggressive way. Seriously, you do you if you're doing it with intent. But otherwise, be careful about handing over your power to somebody and doing it without a lot of thought. That makes life very dangerous for you. I'm not saying all people that are out there who have a lot of power have a desire to manipulate people, but that's what power can do to people, and I don't want that for any of you. So I want to help you develop power. I want to help you keep it. I want to help you be able to make your own decisions for a lifetime. We're here to make you successful, but we do realize that success means different things to different people. Now, I'm not here to be critical of anybody else's approach because everything has its place, but I am here to say that we are not one of those hustle culture, become a millionaire in 60 days kind of channels. If you think that is what will make you happy, that's what's going to make you indestructible, I am not going to challenge you on that. Money can certainly make things a whole lot better. Lord knows I could use another couple mil. Thank you very much. Hook a brother up if you can. But I'll leave you to learn some of those bigger companion lessons about life and happiness and all those things on your own. I will have a future video. I will try and do it sooner than later that aggregates all kinds of incredible learning on what happiness is and what happiness is not, and where wealth fits into the equation. So it does play a role. I mean, we're living in a world where it's expensive. Cost of living has skyrocketed. Money definitely is a piece of it. But as I talked about earlier, this is a channel that preaches balance. And so balance comes from having success and happiness in multiple areas of your life. So we're going to focus more, obviously, on your career in the early and medium-term stages of this channel. And perhaps we will broaden out into other areas where happiness can be created through your own personal health, factoring in relationships, family, money, overall well-being. So we will think about happiness as comprehensive, as a combination of many things, but we will focus on your career success and happiness now. I have had to put a lot of thought into the concept of inclusivity because the meaning and the approach to it is, to say the least, evolving. So I don't plan to be political in this channel. However, to have meaningful conversations about what's going on in the workplace, we will at times need to recognize or notice or acknowledge some things that are coming out of the political domain. This channel's version of inclusivity and my personal philosophy is simply this: everybody matters, and that we all have some value within us. We just need to be willing and patient enough to find it. And that's something I work on all the time. There are celebrities, there are politicians, there are business leaders that I don't respect a whole lot, and I'm certainly not aligned with their values. However, I will find times to notice things that they say or they do that have some merit. And I think that is our only path to just making it as a society, is to obsess less about our differences and find ways that we can come together. So as a result, you will find me recognizing all sides of a situation that we may talk about in the workplace or in your career. Even if it's something controversial, I will just recognize all perspectives because I think everybody should have a voice. I will be very selective about what I advocate for, but in many times it will be some kind of a blend of opinions, and not necessarily just to compromise, but to truly challenge myself to find a path forward, considering everybody's perspective and everybody's needs. Guys, this big blue marble has over 8 billion individuals on it. Each one of us is unique. And as I said before, we're all a little bit crazy. And I mean that in the most wonderful way. And that creates the potential for us to experience division between us, for us to experience the manifestations of the differences between ourselves and others. And I want to challenge all of us to find value in others that allows us to at least coexist with these differences, even when we can't fully embrace them. Ooh, getting a little too heavy here. Let's finish the 8 with something a little more uplifting, and that is this channel is forward looking, and that means 2 things. 1, I'm old, okay? I get it, but I'm looking forward more than I'm looking back. Now, there are some awesome things I wish we could preserve from days gone by, but let's face it, the 1990s are not coming back again, so it makes no sense for me to try to prepare you for it, right? So I spent a lot of time studying and teaching forward-looking trends. So I want you to all be the best version of yourselves in the environment that's to come. So I'm not trying to make you some kind of improved version of something that I once was, and trust me, nobody wants that. Okay, number 2. How can I say this politely? Okay, I can't. We are just not going to hang out and marinate in our bitching. Social media sometimes, okay, many times really thrives on that. It's really great for clicks. And I said we were going to acknowledge things. We're going to acknowledge who we are. We're going to acknowledge the situation that we are in. We are going to notice these things. But then we are going to move the on. Okay? We're going to notice. We're going to say it is what it is. There's an expression that I love that I didn't invent, and it came from a VP that I worked with at Johnson & Johnson. It was when we just got bogged down in awful situations that we were in, to the point where we would just believe that it's not fixable. And she had a line, and she said, you know what? There is what is, and then there is what we can cause. And that was a really great line to help us just unlock our mentality sometimes. We think of what is as permanent. Nothing is permanent. We can always cause something different. So we will leverage our growth mindset, we will leverage our empowerment, and we will be able to move on. So I have this in my personal life. I was just talking to somebody in my universe the other day who was going on and on and on about needing to move, but there are no affordable options, and this person lives alone, and the cost of living is so high, and the cost of housing is so high. And of course, I'm being empathetic with this person, but then after now several years, you have to just turn off the empathy gene a little bit and say, you know what? I support you, I hear you, but this is the situation that we're in. So what are you going to now manifest? What are you going to do? So on this channel, you will get a lot of support, you will get a lot of empathy, but then we will all be reminded that we're here to progress. So those are our guiding principles. A few more things I want to cover off before we close off for today, and that is our approach to content. So I have the content loosely organized, and it's in 3 groupings. I'm going to focus on one of the groupings more in the beginning because it's the foundational videos. So these are all the videos that are going to set the stage. What is the employment landscape like? What's going on in organizations? What are some things that we can learn about human nature so we can start to understand ourselves and understand other people and leaders in organizations? These foundational videos, I'll make them as interesting and entertaining as possible. It's some of it is nerdy stuff, but a lot of it is pretty fun and my students enjoy it. But I'll be referring to this content a lot as we work through subsequent videos, so I don't want to have to repeat myself. So these videos will play an important role. I will also mix in a grouping of videos that I call power moves, just mindset shifts and ways to think about, for example, resumes. How do we need to think about resumes or interviews or other things that are related to our career so that we can start to wire our brain to make the best decisions? So I'll sprinkle those power moves in. The third group, which will come a little bit later, but again, I will sprinkle some of those in just to change things up a little bit and make sure there's a lot of variety, is what I call all the details, all those action steps. How do you really work through things like salary negotiations, and what are the detailed things you need to think about, in your career, in different situations, working with difficult people, negotiating salaries, whatever it is, right? So I will have some pretty unique takes that are based on human nature, that will allow us to be a lot more knowledgeable and have the wisdom and be effective as we take these really critical actions in our career. Oh, one of the cool things that you're going to find is that as we work through all the different topics, there's going to be themes that emerge. I talked about balance as being one of the themes in a lot of the content. There's going to be a whole bunch of other themes that start to repeat themselves throughout the content that we present. So you're going to see how a lot of these videos don't just come at you one by one and you got to make sense of them, how they're all going to start to weave together through the way that we present them in the sequence of the videos. And then once we get through, I don't know, 50, 100, 200 videos talking about careers, if you guys want, we can get into other types of videos. Certainly I want to do mental health. There's a lot that I want to talk about on that. We can talk about matters of health because I also have a lot of experience with that I would like to share. Things that are going on in technology, marketing, entrepreneurship. We can get into any other types of verticals to the extent you guys have the appetite. And last thing, I've been trying to think about, what do I want to leave you with at the end of every video? What do I want to say as I close off, and something that would be relevant for every topic that I talk about? And I came up with something, and it is this. Wait, okay, that's wrong. There. That sign there, if you can see it, it says keep it moving, and that's how I'm going to close every video. So what does keep it moving mean? What does it signify? Well, it's two things. One, keep going. Whether we're talking about mental health, whether we're talking about you being stuck in your career, even if you're later on in your career and you're thinking about retirement and you're starting to slow down, it is important to keep going. Even tiny, tiny little steps. Have you ever heard of the book Atomic Habits? It's about taking small steps that have big impact. Small steps could lead to more small steps, which creates momentum, which creates action, and then creates bigger things for you as well. So that's another way to think about it. So it's okay to feel like you're stuck, but you want to unlock from being stuck. And so keep it moving, do one really small thing, and then work on the next thing soon after that. That was actually a theme that's related to when I worked in the Caribbean. I was working for Scotiabank. We got directly hit by a hurricane. It obliterated the island. Oh my God, it was absolutely awful. And everything was such a disaster. Over half of my staff lost their homes. We lost electricity for a long period of time. Everybody had to stand in line for chicken at the grocery store. Like, it was just chaos. And so I came up with just this idea of saying, let's just make tomorrow better than today in any way that we can, even in the smallest way possible. Because that was the only way we were going to tackle this mountain that we were standing at the bottom of. And that became the theme. So it applies to a lot of different situations, whether you're in a great situation or in the middle of a disaster. And the second way that Keep It Moving applies is this idea of don't stop thinking. I obsess over this as an educator. I often tell my students, in a way, some of the content is not even as important as the way the content is going to help you exercise your brain. And that's connected to your value, that's connected to your empowerment. So please, I know thinking, and I don't say this to make fun of anybody, thinking is really hard sometimes. We have so many things to think about in a day. I'm encouraging you to be intentional with your career and other things in life, but that means more thinking. So again, my job is to try to find a way to help you do it in an efficient way so it's not so overwhelming. But don't hand over your power. Don't hand over your thinking to other people and let them do all of it for you, because that'll make your world, it'll seem a little more convenient, but at the end of the day, it becomes more dangerous, more chaotic, and you don't necessarily end up in the right place. And in most cases, you don't. So that is all I have to talk about today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed learning about us and our philosophies and what's to come. Enough of these setup videos. We're really going to get into it. I am not going to make any promises because I am a jinx that there's going to be a video at any particular time. All I'm here to say is I feel reasonably prepared to work on the next one. So until I get to that and show you my next video, I will just say, please keep it moving, and I will see you soon.